We watched Severance. Severance. The first season came out in 2022. It's a thriller mystery thing. It's on Apple TV Plus, which is why I never watched it. I heard it was really good. I'm also just not a big watcher unless Kat puts something on for me. And we hung out with some friends a few weeks ago, and they were like, we're going to show you the first episode, the first 2 episodes of Severance, Taigen. And I watched it, and I thought, hey, this is pretty intriguing. I would actually be interested in seeing the rest of the show, at least the first season. Because the second season is airing right now. Actually, the final episode comes out this week. And so Kat and I have watched the whole series up till now. I'm going to talk a little bit about it and kind of some observations that I have. I think that until the final episode is out, I don't feel comfortable making like an entire super broad definitive statement about it. Because it's a mystery and there is a lot to that has not been revealed yet that I think is important, that is going to be important. So like the biggest mystery of the show has not been revealed yet. I'm assuming that's going to be in the last episode, which is like over an hour long, apparently. It's like an hour 15. So I still do have some observations about the first 2 seasons that I would like to get on the record. But before that, I will at least recommend the show. I will say, yes, I think you should watch it. It is many people would call it a slow burn series. I would call it patient. A lot of stuff does happen, but it's not very obvious. It's not obvious what that affects. There's kind of a rippling butterfly effect. The show really takes its time, but interesting things are consistently happening. Mind you, Katrina is not the most interested in slow burn stories, and she loves the show. She is really engaged by it, and we're both really into it. So I think that should be a don't let that deter you. I guess I should get the premise of the show out of the way. Essentially, Severance takes place in a near future setting where a new procedure has been invented called severing, or severance. Essentially, severance is a little thing that they implant in your brain. There's a little chip in your brain. And when you enter a certain like field, you become a different person. The way that this is employed, the main way that this technology is employed in the show, is that there is a medical corporation, some kind of biomedical corporation called Lumen Industries. And they have an entire underground floor called the Severed Floor. And the main characters work on the Severed Floor. So what happens is they take an elevator down, and there's some kind of field or something on the way there that switches them to literally a different personality. Essentially, when you wake up from being severed, you have no knowledge of who you are on the outside. You don't know what your name is. You don't know what you do out there. You don't know if you have a family. You don't know you don't know where you live. You don't know where you are. You do have some basic like information. Like characters know about, they might remember different amounts of like information about, the states of the country that they live in. Or just basic facts about the world or something like that. You're not like being reborn necessarily, but your memories of who you are and your life are separated off. They're segmented off. So you could be going through you could be single, you could be married with kids, you could be going through anything up there. The world, like they're talking in the early episodes, and one of the main characters starts talking about how he thinks that there's actually like an apocalypse up on the outside, on the surface, and they're just working down that. Like they have no information. They had no information. The series starts with one of I would say the two leading characters, Helly, waking up and not understanding what's going on, being confused. She's in a boardroom. She's being questioned by the other lead character, Mark, played by Adam Scott. And it's basically like the early part of the show is her figuring out what the hell is going on and what they do there. They work in a place called Macro Data Refinement. That's the name of their department at the company. And so they just kind of like click on numbers all day, and it's unclear what they are actually doing. Now, so there's 4 people in the department, and you might expect that you learn more and stuff starts to unfold and stuff, and it is very interesting. What is Lumen actually doing? What's going on? Who are they on the outside? We don't know. So there's a lot of interesting stuff about, why people get severed, a lot of good character stuff. I love so many of I think every character is really well explored and fleshed. I'm trying not to be, because I am recommending the show. I don't want to be too specific before I get into like my observations. But I'll say that you should totally go watch it. It's a really, really good show. Totally worth it. Thumbs up from the Tigster. That gets 3 out of 3 moons. I don't know. Should I come up with my own rating system? Yes, if any of that sounds interesting to you, it's fantastically directed. Very minimal directing. I really like the effect that they do when they go down the elevator. I'm pretty okay. So what they do like a what is it called? The Spielberg zoom, where they zoom out while adjusting the focal length, which gives it this. It kind of feels like parts like the center of the image is getting closer while the background of the image is getting further away. And I believe that they actually film they do this neat thing where they film the segments on the severed floor in what it would be called, a deeper focal length than on the surface, which has this effect of making all the hallways look longer. I thought that was kind of neat. There's tons of like little bits of symbolism and stuff like that I could unpack, but I'm going to give it a thumbs up unless you want to keep watching. Sorry, what did I mean? Thumbs up if you want to skip this and don't be spoiled. But yes, I am recommending it. You should jump on it. Both seasons are out now. Season 1 ends with a cliffhanger. So you should be good now. I would be very surprised if the final season ended on if this season, I don't know. It depends entirely on where it goes, but it feels like it's coming towards a conclusion of some sort. It's building up to something. I don't know how they would extend this even further. It feels like the plot's gone pretty far. Anyway, I want to make some observations about the series. So, I've never taken a philosophy class, so take everything I say with a grain of salt that I'm kind of bullshitting my way through. But I do think that the points that I'm making are kind of cogent. They might just not be rooted in like an exactly accurate understanding of these philosophies. Nietzsche had this idea that human beings had 3 core types of needs. Those were physical, mental, and spiritual. Physical are things like the things that our bodies need to survive, like food, water, clothing, some kind of physical stimulation like exercise. Mental needs were basically the need to not be bored, some kind of mental stimulation so that our minds don't get all static. Boredom is, boredom is a really easy way to drive someone insane. And then finally, spiritual needs, which are basically like abstract questions about our own personal identities. Like, who am I? Where do I belong? What is my who do I belong with? What's my community? What am I supposed to do in my life? What's my purpose? What's the meaning of life? And in order to provide for human society, we come up with institutions. We create institutions to fulfill these needs for us. So we have agriculture and the whole food pipeline that we have to fulfill our needs. We water and all that stuff to keep us alive. An entire network of all that and methods and industries based on that to fulfill our physical needs. Our intellectual needs are fulfilled by academic institutions, by copious amounts of existing knowledge and collections of information and stuff, although a lot of it does tend to be kind of self-motivated. We also have the arts, which I think are the arts and the sciences in a way are kind of are to further our intellectual stimulation. And then for spiritual needs, the primary institution that fulfills these historically is institutional religions. However, Nietzsche predicted that after the Enlightenment movement, that the human society would gradually get more and more secular, and he viewed this as a problem. Not that he loved religion, because he had many criticisms of organized religion, but he foresaw an issue where people would suddenly be left without an institutionalized, standardized way to fulfill their spiritual needs. And this is what he called, would lead to what he called nihilism. A lot of people mischaracterize Nietzsche as a nihilist, but he was not. He thought he was very against nihilism. He saw it as a very, very bad thing that should not be dominant in culture at all. It was basically an enemy to society and collective human psyche. The goal instead was to either create some way of forming your own identity and self-purpose detached from institutions. That's what an Übermensch is. Not actually a Nazi thing. It was the idea of the Übermensch was someone who could essentially self-fulfill their spiritual needs without a system to guide them. Now I'm going to talk about Hegel. Whoa, Hegelian dialectics. So, Hegelian dialectics is just it's just a fancy word for a way of thinking. And Hegelian dialectics is the way of thinking that was put forward by, what's his name? George Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. So essentially, Hegelian dialectics is a mindset, a line of reasoning that you apply to abstract concepts, things like liberty, government, love, freedom, things like that, and to pick them apart and to understand them better, I guess, in a sense. Basically, it goes in 3 phases, which are usually boiled down to thesis, antithesis, and synthesis, which you've probably heard of before at some point. These are not, as far as I understand it, apparently a lot of Hegelian scholars call that an oversimplification, but it's generally a pretty good understanding of it. Basically, the idea is that within each of these abstract concepts, there is some kind of fatal flaw that in the initial formation of ideas, the first formation is overly broad and general and is lacking in nuance. And it has these kinds of holes in it. Within each thing is its opposite. And once you understand that it has an opposite, that first thing, the thesis, is canceled out. It's nullified and it crumbled away. The antithesis is basically the exact opposite of it. And it's what is the opposite of that concept? But the antithesis, well, maybe being a little more nuanced, is itself flawed and also overly general and has its own holes. It is just the opposite of the thesis. They both have weaknesses. You just bounce from one to the other in whatever order you happen to arrive at them on. And the antithesis also kind of is negated and crumbles under itself. And from these, you reach the third phase, which is the synthesis, and it is the combination of the good points of the first two phases. It is you have started with one argument, you have poked holes in it, you've taken the exact opposite argument, and then you logic your way through it and figure it out to come up with a final premise for what you are, for what makes sense. So, if we look at the idea of spiritual needs and a spiritual institution, things that give people purpose. Religion, let's say religion. The thesis of religion, you could say, is, I think that the point that the way that I read Severance, the message, or one of the core themes of Severance, is that the thesis of religion is traditional, organized, institutionalized religions. But because these religions are too absolute and are to rely too much on faith as means to guide people's lives, they produce doubt and skepticism, and thus over time, as people discover alternative ways of thinking, begin to weaken in different directions, in different ways. Sometimes breaking down into smaller sects. Sometimes it's just the overall weakening and a growing secularity in society. And that leads to the second phase, which is, I wouldn't call it atheism or science or skepticism. I would call it rationalism as the antithesis to religion. That a society that prefers fact-based, evidential-based belief systems, things that are informed by measurable data and science. Science itself is a process. Science is not a thing, it's a process of collecting information that is as reliable as you can hope to get, and as a way of measuring the world. And this clashes fundamentally with many ideas of religious faith, because faith is belief without knowledge, without facts, that you have to bridge the gap yourself. The scientific process is the act of bridging the gap between your lack of understanding and understanding. So there are kind of like opposites to each other. However, science and rationalism lack that kind of intangible spiritual fulfillment that faith and religion provide. Therefore, they're also it's not a sufficient substitute for religion. So, what is the synthesis of these two ideas? What is the final form of religion in society? And Severance's argument, as I understand it, is that it is the corporation. The corporation is the final perfect religion. And I think this is really interesting because I haven't actually seen this before. Usually when you see arguments like this or messages like this, it tends to be consumerism instead. Consumerism is like a religion. I don't know if I would actually say that. Consumerism is like a lifestyle in a way, but it doesn't provide that much that religion does. I don't think it really gives people purpose. I don't think it really provides them with community and meaning. Maybe in some cases, but it's too decentralized. I think the idea of allegiance to a corporation as an employee which is what Severance is suggesting, actually is a lot more intriguing, and I think it makes a lot more sense. Because it's the strongest elements of both. Think about what being an employee to a company gives you. It gives you a purpose. It's the best because it provides all the benefits of the fulfillment of the needs. Both needs are met. When you're an employee, you don't just have like a purpose that you have to infer based off of faith and prayer. You are assigned a task. Imagine if God came down, the real God came down and said, hey, I need you to build 50 boats this year. That's your quota. And you're like, oh, well, okay, well, I guess God told me to. That's the same thing. It's, if you could hit a quota to know exactly what your purpose in life is it very ambitious? Well, it gives you ambition to hit the quota, but it's also very comforting because you know what you're supposed to do. You know who you are. They don't even know if the names that Lumen tells them they have are their real names. That is the thing. Like, you know that Mark S is Mark Scott because you see him on the outside, but like the innies, as they call them, they have no idea. They don't know. His name could be Dave. It could be Dave Lichtenstein or something. The company provides you with identity. The company provides you with purpose. And the purpose is measurable. You can see it on a screen. You get a percentage that goes up every time you do your work based off of how much work you do. God tells you that he is pleased with you and gives you material benefits in the forms of these perks that they get, which are like, you can get a little picture, you can get a finger trap, you can get little perks, you can get like a dance party. These are material ways that your actions, your devotion to this idea, and your fulfillment of your purpose pays off for you. There's a thing called the break room that they have, which is not like a break room to relax. It's a break room to break them. That's kind of the idea. It's essentially a psychological torture room, where they are placed in a dark room and they have to recite an apology whenever they break code. They have to recite an apology over and over again until a lie detector proves that they actually mean it. Think about that. That is essentially confession. Imagine if you could go to confession and the priest instead of the priest saying God forgives you, and you just have to take his word for it. Imagine you could go to confession and the priest had a scientific instrument, and lie detectors are kind of bullshit, but a scientific instrument that could prove that you are actually sorry and worthy of forgiveness. It is all of the, it's the intangible needs, the spiritual needs of a human being. You know what department you're in, for instance, right? You have clear distinctions between departments. But the things which in traditional religions are abstract and you just kind of have to believe, you have to have faith. The faith is replaced with numbers. The faith is replaced with hard data that you can see measured on a screen. The quantifiable information, the quantifiable nature of the reassurance of a rational viewpoint that provides the fulfillment of faith, of religious faith. And there are many, at first I'm like, oh, they kind of treat it like a religion. There's these little hints. And as you go on, no, it is a religion. It is a religion. They have boarding schools where kids are brought up being taught about the essentially prophetic, messianic, teachings of the founder of Lumen Industries, Keir Egan. Keir is Jesus. He is Jesus. He is Muhammad. He is He is Moses. He is the prophet and the lawgiver and the expansionist, and he is the one who, his purpose is your purpose that he gifts to the members, to the employees of Lumen Industries. His offspring and his children have a I guess kind of like a, oh snap, I'm a fucking amateur. I don't remember. The Caliph is not the Caliph in Islam is not hereditary, right? Hang on. Is the Caliph like elected? Yeah, the Caliph is not. I forget what the Shia. Hang on, let me just look up. Right. Is it Grand Ayatollah? Is that the term? Like the offspring of Muhammad, or the lineage of Muhammad? Given to the highest level of the 12er Shia religious cleric with the authority. Okay. I don't know a whole lot about about Islam. I know a little bit, but they're basically that. They serve that function. They're the lineage that the Egan name is passed down through. And then so that is, those are the things that it provides. And for the most part, the main characters are anomalies in that system. Most people are pretty happy, or at least content. They have almost no idea that things down there are really weird. Like, we have these conceptions that you're like, oh my God, this is insane. Like, a job could never do this. A job should never be able to do this. It's a job. And that's why you need to be severed, right? In a religion, you're born into that. None of the things that your religion do are particularly strange to you because you're born into them and used to them. The severance procedure essentially offers, it means that the severed employees, the innies, can basically be born into a new church, into a new religion, where they are indoctrinated into it and they serve it for however long they're with the company, and they don't know anything else. They don't know anything else besides what the church gives them. I guess you could call it a cult. I'd say that the difference between a religion and a cult is how much money they want from you. I guess Lumen doesn't ask for any money. They just ask for your labor. They just ask for your work, which you could maybe equate to that. They do pay you. That's what's so interesting. They don't pay the innies, but they pay the outies. Man, there's a lot of really interesting questions about like the distinction, because it's a really intriguing ethical conundrum. It feels like an episode of Star Trek, like a good episode of Star Trek in that way, where it gives you this sort of ethical conundrum that you never would have thought of, and then has the characters sorted out. Like, do you distinguish, okay, say you're innie, who has no idea about you or anything that you do, right? Anything about you on the outside. Say your innie gets like pregnant at work, right? Is that cheating? What is that? You know? If someone who is an innie has sex with someone who they believe is an innie but is actually an outie, is that like rape? How do you, if that's the other thing is, so let's say you're someone who your innie had sex and you find out about it. Are you like, how do you feel about that? Because you didn't consent. If you met the other person and, you know, on the outside, you may very well have not wanted to have sex with them, but the innies did. Is that like rape. It's such an interesting, and characters have different reactions to it. I get where I'm in spoilers, so I don't mind going into this stuff at this point. Did I mention I was in spoilers? If I didn't, I am officially. So, like, a big point of contention is that, yes, the innies are their own people. And when they leave the company, they essentially die. You know, they're never going to exist again. They are effectively being killed. And so the innies are their own people. But then you have, you know, these examples of, like, Dylan, one of the main characters, I love Dylan, ends up getting, in the second season, he ends up getting visitation rights with his wife. His wife comes down to the severed floor, and they meet in a room, and they just talk. And you get some flashes of the outside world, and you get the impression that they have, like, 3 kids, and it just seems like they're really tired, and they work way too much, and they're just stressed out, and there's just not a lot of room for love in their relationship. You know, I think she's like a 911 operator, which is like a very tough job. I think I kind of get the impression that she works like multiple jobs too. And he goes and gets severed for 8 hours a day. And as she's talking, and you get these sorts of, as they're having these scenes of them meeting, and then later you see them on the outside, like it's just a strained relationship by circumstance. And the way that you kind of get the impression that when she's meeting the innie version of Dylan, it's like she feels like she's talking to the Dylan she knows, who has no memory. He has no memory of her. He doesn't know who she is. But she gets the feeling that despite that, it's like the Dylan that she knows, but more relaxed, like more stress-free. He's kind of funny. He has a good sense of humor. He really cares about his kids. He's so excited to learn about their lives and their family and all that. And it's like she's having this experience where, like, oh my God, this is like my husband. If just all our stresses went away, this is like the real Dylan. And they hug, and I think they exchange a kiss at one point. And later, she tells him that she kissed his innie. And Dylan, for one reason or another on the outside, gets very upset. And I think the inclination might be that he's being unreasonable. But I mean, if you think about it, a lot of stuff in the show so far has been getting you on board with the idea that the innies are their own people. And like, hey, if an innie got pregnant at work or got someone pregnant, like you cannot be held liable for that as an outie. Like morally, ethically, you have to be considered a different person. But then like this thing happens where, you know, she kisses his innie, and he responds, the outie Dylan responds as if it's like she kissed another man. And it's weird because it's like she's cheating on him with himself, sort of, but he thinks of that as a different person. And there is a very reasonable logic as to why. And it's sort of like you can't have your cake and eat it too, sort of thing. And it's so intriguing, the different ways that people respond to it. There is a lot of stuff. There's a decent amount of stuff in the show about, there's a different sort of analysis, which is very, I would say probably the more left-leaning analysis, which is that the corporations don't see their employees as people. The innies are dehumanized. They're called animals. They are not, the people in charge don't really think that they should have rights in the same way that people on the outside do. And the biggest difference between them and the outies is just that they are the one that works. The outies have lives and personhood, and they are deserving of moral consideration and all that. But the innies are just workers. They're worker drones. They don't deserve. Why would they need rights? And when they try to demand more rights, they're oh my god, you give them an inch and they take a mile. We got to keep them down. There's a clear class distinction message somewhere in there. Again, the show is not completed, so I can't really speak to all of it. I think that's probably where I'm going to cut it for now. I might have some more thoughts by the end. When I watch the last episode, and I might circle back to this. I will say, actually, okay, Taigen's Lock of the Week. I have a prediction. For what the big mystery is, because we don't know what Lumen does. We don't know what the real thing is. The second season has been building up to this project that Mark has been working towards at the macro data refinement. It's called Cold Harbor. We don't know what Cold Harbor is. We don't know. You sort of learn a bit of what the work they're doing in macro data refinement does, like what the purpose is for, but it's unclear and very bizarre. You see the fruits of their labor in a certain way, but it's not like, what is this? What is the purpose of this? What are these projects? So my theory, my working theory, my call, my bet, my lock of the week is that the Lumen, I'm okay. These are the damned. My bet is that the big twist in Severance is that it's going to be just like one of my favorite movies, These Are the Damned, from 1962 to 65, depending on who you ask. One of my favorite movies, These Are the Damned. I'm guessing, oh god, spoilers for that movie. Fuck, should I spoil it? Spoilers for These Are the Damned as well. Why not? You should go watch it. It's free on YouTube. It's really, really good. So yeah, my theory is that they are basically doomsday prepping, and that the work that they're doing on the severed floor is to prepare for an inevitable, or what they see as an inevitable apocalypse. And the severed employees are basically working towards or training some kind of contingency plan for when that happens. That's my guess. That's my assumption. It would be really funny if that happened, because Kat would have to admit that These Are the Damned is a good movie with a great idea. But yeah, so she's going to look really funny when she's wrong, because she doesn't like that movie as much as me. How dare she? Anyway, Severance is great. You should go watch it.